Okay, kids, it's time for another episode of the Fueled by Weird podcast, the only podcast taking place live from the Oakbridge Event Center. I'm Chris Daly, and today I have the pleasure of chatting with Connor Howard. Connor, how's it going, man?
It's going great, man. Thanks for having me. It's good to be
Yeah,
here.
absolutely. I'm so stoked that we can make this happen.
Same here.
All right, man. So my usual way I like to kick these things off is with an icebreaker question. So today's question, can you do an impression of somebody famous?
Hmm. Hmm. I've actually been working a little bit on my Jeff Goldblum. Uh,
Yeah.
oh well, you could I don't know, you could make a movie with it. You could dance. You can. He's a little I don't know. He's a little nebulous. There aren't a lot of mannerisms that are strictly him, but it's more of a vibe. It's more like
True.
oh, what's this? Oh, look at that. Isn't that interesting? Oh, wow, look at that. He's always very fascinated by everything. So if you just kind of dial up the kind of like, ooh, isn't that neat? Kind of energy. That's you pretty much have him.
That's
Uh,
pretty awesome.
that I've always been a fan of. I've always been able to do a pretty decent Palpatine.
Okay.
He's not real, but he's famous.
Sure.
Every single Jedi is now an enemy. Yeah, yeah, he's torture on the throat, so I can't do him
Yeah.
for long. But yeah.
No, I get that. I used to, back when I was younger, do a pretty great Macho Man Randy Savage,
Oh, that's a good
um,
one.
to the point where I was at Boy Scout camp and I was just running around crazy doing the voice. And they thought because my voice was so close to his, they thought he was my dad. So we kind of just went off that whole thing. And I have this weird encyclopedia brain of pro wrestling knowledge. So they would just ask me these questions and I would just kind of rattle off answers. And it was pretty fun.
It's kind of like how would he know that if he wasn't Macho Man Randy Savage's kid? Like
Right? I
he has to
mean,
be.
the 90s was a wild time, man.
Absolutely. I was actually really into wrestling as a kid. I kind of got away from it as I
Sure.
grew up, but I was a really big fan of the Hardy Boys actually.
Yeah, me too.
My older brother and I would watch them religiously and then choke slam each other onto the couch and stuff like that. And I'd go to school the next day and do the kind of the I don't know what you call it, the
The crotch chop.
yeah, the crotch chop
Mhm.
move. And my teachers would tell me to stop, and I didn't understand why it was bad. I just thought it was funny.
The Hardy Boys are actually still going pretty strong right now.
Wow,
They're
that's
they're
insane.
they're still pretty good.
I
Uh,
can't I can't imagine doing that to your body all those years and still being able to go out and perform like
yeah,
that. Incredible.
for sure. All right, let me see if I can dust off Randy. I keep promising my friend who's another podcaster on the network we started that I'm going to try this. So hopefully maybe we can get this going.
Alrighty.
Because also like Palpatine, Randy Savage is a little bit hard on the throat.
Small doses.
Oh yeah, brother, dig it. Oh yeah.
That's pretty
Also,
good.
thank you. I've
Pretty
also
good.
that was super rusty. I used to be pretty good, but I'm also working on again like Palpatine, mine's not real. It's Bane from the Harley Quinn HBO Max show.
Hmm.
Um yeah, explosions. Pasta maker, curse you. Sometimes my Bane turns into Clayface and my Clayface turns into Bane. And so I gotta kind
They
of work on that a little bit.
little bit of a crossover there, yeah. I used to really enjoy doing Sean Connery, but specifically the version of him on Celebrity Jeopardy from SNL. Oh, yeah, I'll take anal bum cover for $300. Just
That's
like
pretty good.
uh,
Yeah, I told my wife that you don't really need to see the third Christopher Nolan Batman movie because Bane is basically a really terrible Sean Connery impression.
I'd always thought that yeah, the Tom Hardy's Bane was basically if Sean Connery was crossed to it was mixed with Skeletor. That's what it
Yeah,
sounded. It
that's
was
pretty
just
good.
that the combination of those two. Like, the fire rises, Batman. It's like I always got a kick out of it. Like, yeah, Tom Hardy. I respect that Hardy made a choice with
Yeah,
his. It's like he didn't go the route you'd expect him to go with that
yeah.
character.
Yeah, my wife didn't believe me, so I had to play a clip of it, and she just looked at me like this was seriously a thing. Like I'm like, yeah, that's how it was. It's pretty
Mm.
wild.
Ah, you fight like a young man, nothing held back. Admirable but mistaken.
It's
That's
pretty
fun.
good. It's fun. All right, man. So the concept of the show, Fueled by Weird, is basically all the things that you're into, your hobbies, your interests, all the things that come together are what make you who you are. So let's talk a
Sure.
little bit about what some of your hobbies and your interests are.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, if we're going weird, we can dive right into
Yeah, we
I'm
like
a
weird around here.
I'm a big D&D nerd. Love Dungeons and
Nice.
Dragons. Play it every chance I get, which isn't often enough. You know how it is
Oh
because
yeah,
you
for sure.
schedule other people to play with you. And I'm running a
Yeah.
campaign right now though. We meet roughly once a month, once or twice a month, whenever we can. And I'm DMing the Rime of the Frost Maiden campaign right now,
Fantastic.
which is really fun. I also play in another game that actually just wrapped up, and we're starting a new. Yeah, another a friend of mine is DMing that one, and we play that
Mhm.
one remotely because we have like a player down in Georgia, we have a player over in New Jersey. So like, what's nice is like, yeah, technology's progressed to the point where you can have a pretty high quality D&D experience over like Foundry or some similar virtual tabletop. So that's been pretty fun.
Yeah,
But yeah, I've been into D&D for a long time. I've been playing since like high school.
nice.
First got into it. Um, I've tried Shadowrun too. That's another fun game that I haven't played in a long time, but that's another high quality RPG. If you're sick of like swords and magic and elves and stuff, well, there's also magic and elves and swords in Shadowrun, but different setting. A nice change of pace. So yeah, definitely a big RPG nerd. See, I'm very deep into 40K as well. It's another
Oh,
setting
nice.
I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, I've been recently, last week or so, been playing a lot of that Space Marine 2 game that just came out.
Oh, nice.
It's so much fun. It's a
That's
great
awesome.
time. And yeah, it's funny because I've been into the 40K universe for a long time, but I've never played the tabletop game, the war game with the minis,
Yeah.
just
Hmm.
because I don't have nearly enough patience to like buy and paint an army.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much lore involved. Like
Hmm.
the universe that surrounds those minis is so expansive and
Yeah.
huge and deep that I just read books. I just read the books and I play the video games. It's kind of how I enjoy 40K. But
It works.
yeah, I could, you can ask my wife and she'll tell you that I can go on and on about the various chapters of Space Marines and like all that stuff for hours and hours and hours. But that's fun for me as well.
Nice.
Um, Aside from that, yeah, I have the voice acting hobby, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah.
I've been doing for a few years. That does kind of have its roots in performance in general for me, though. When I was younger, I think in like starting maybe as early as middle school, but definitely high school, I got into like drama club, improv workshops and sketch workshops, just performing. And I really got away from it in college, but got back into acting later on in life. So
Nice.
there's that. Um, oh, and another big one is music. I play music. I'm actually a bass guitar player here and
Oh, that's
there.
cool.
Play a little bass myself, and
Nice.
I recently joined a band. Nothing serious. It's just three dudes in a basement, kind of like doing covers, and yeah, just garage rock type stuff. But
Right on.
it's a great outlet. It's
Yeah,
great for just getting out of the house and doing something creative and fun.
for
And
sure.
yeah, keeps me busy for sure.
That's cool, man. So I have to ask, because it would be, I would never live it down if I don't ask you. When you DM, do you do all the
Mhm.
voices?
I do. Yes. I mean,
Fantastic.
there is a certain amount of like picking my battles. Like, okay, is this a character that I need to really go hard on with like a
Yeah.
serious deep characterization, or is this just a one-off NPC that my players are going to talk to once and then that's it? So it's kind of like if they just walk into a tavern and I have to be the innkeep really quick, it'll
Yeah.
just be basically me. Hey, what's going on? How can I help you? Like, but occasionally, yeah, I'll mix it up. Like, oh, hi, good to see you. Like, yeah, I'll just mix it up so they know they're talking to someone new and funny and unique. But no, that is fun. Like when you have an NPC that you know is going to be around for a while, and you
Yeah.
know your players are going to interact with more than once. yeah, you can really have fun with it, and that's a good time.
That's cool. And yeah, 40K, I was kind of like you. I've never actually played because, just because of the time investment that's involved, but I have dabbled a bit in the video games. So yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. So
Yeah,
it's a cool concept, but like you said, it's a lot of work if you're going to actually play the tabletop version. And
there's the time investment and the money investment. They say that
yeah.
buying an army. What is it called? There's a joke about 40K. Some people call it 401K because in order to paint your first army, you got to cash out your 401K.
Yeah, I've heard
So
that.
yeah, it's like they're neat. Don't get me wrong, the minis are cool.
Sure.
Like
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind like having a couple just as like display items, like little
yeah. Yeah,
trinkets on my desk. But like
yeah.
to really buy all the stuff you need to play it seriously on a competitive level. No thanks.
Yeah.
Could not be bothered.
All the respect to the people that do, but yeah, I
Sure,
just I
for
just
sure.
don't think I could. It's too
Yeah.
much work. But with D&D, I also kind of played starting when I was in high school. I've fallen off a little bit just because it's been hard to find someone who wants to DM because everybody wants to play.
Yeah.
And I've been told, well, if you can't find a DM, well, you should just DM. I'm like, well, it's easier said than done, I mean, sure, being a DM yourself. And
Yeah.
actually just recently I talked to on my show a guy who runs his own game, but
Mhm.
it's an RPG, but it's called Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland.
Oh
And so
wow.
it's basically like post-apocalyptic D&D. So
Hmm.
that's one that I'm like, all right, I want to get back into D&D, and I'm thinking that might be one that might get me in because
Yeah.
it's pretty exciting. Plus, they just came out with an expansion called Demi Bros. Oh my God. He's gonna hate me that I don't remember what it's called. Hold on. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find it real quick because I'm gonna hate myself if I don't remember what it's called.
So is it like a an expansion of Dungeons, or is it its own rule book and system and all
Yeah, so
that?
what it is, they've got a core rule book that's Neon Lords of the Toxic
Yeah.
Wasteland, and then they've come out with all their own separate
Nice.
expansion books for it.
Nice.
Um, Deities and Demi Bros is what it's called. Um,
That's pretty cool.
And basically what it is Macho in this world, Macho Man Randy Savage is a Zeus-like character, and he's taken all these other wrestlers and he's locked them in the Hell Cell. And he forgot he locked him in the Hell Cell because he has the madness. And they end up getting broken out, and it's this whole thing where basically you replace Greek gods with pro wrestlers.
Oh wow.
Oh, it's so cool. It sounds so awesome. But yeah,
That's rad.
they've
Yeah.
got their main core rule book, and then they've got a bunch of other. He's kind of just developed all the rule books, and he's got all these expansions. It's pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for
Yeah, I've,
sure.
I've been I've been lucky enough to have a good friend of mine who plays in my game and I play in his. So it's kind of like we
Nice.
got a bit of a agreement going like, okay, I'll run a game that you can play in and you'll run a game that I can play in. That way we both
That's
kind of
awesome.
can scratch the itch.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's around here. It's been hard to just find someone who you can find all the people that want to play, but it's hard to find
Hmm.
someone who wants to run the game. So
For
I
sure.
think it might just be better to just see if we can like outsource, like you said, with a Zoom game or something. But they also are
Yeah.
they're opening a business here pretty close to my house that's going to be just a game store, but it's all tabletop and RPGs and board games and card games and
Nice.
D&D. So I'm thinking maybe that's the one. All
Awesome. Yeah. I know
right,
some
man.
places will actually pay you to DM a game. Like there's some
That's cool.
there was a game store not far from where I live that I think they since closed down, unfortunately. But when they were open, they would hire people to DM games for their customers, basically. So
Really?
it's almost like a side gig for some people.
That's interesting. What makes it hard though is, you have to have a good DM because I know
Mhm.
my oldest daughter, she really wanted to get into D&D and they had like a D&D club at her school.
Mm.
So, we got her all the stuff and she started going and she only went like 2 or 3 times because she's like, I hate this game because it's so boring. I'm like, well, I think it's just because you must have got a bad DM because, a bad DM is going to make it unbearable.
Yeah.
Like I went to a game a couple of times where the DM told me, my character was illiterate, but I had to wear glasses. And I
Huh.
was like, what's that even do then? Like I have to have glasses, but I can't read. Like
What's the point of that? Yeah.
exactly.
It's
And
weird.
he just made all these really weird characteristics. Like this other guy was super handsome, but he was bald. And I'm like,
These seem like the kinds of things the players should decide, not the DM. That's kind of
I
strange to me.
agree. And I told my daughter, I'm like, really, you just have to find a good dungeon master because a good dungeon master is going to make it so you really want to come back. So I
Yeah,
said,
absolutely.
don't hate it just because of your couple of experiences with a bad storyteller. You just got to find a better one. That's
Could have
all
had a
it
bad
is.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All
Hmm.
right, man. So we're gonna hop in the Wayback Machine and we're gonna take ourselves back to what it was that inspired you to get into voiceover in the first place.
Ooh, good question. Yeah. So yeah, like I guess I'd had the acting bug pretty early.
Mhm.
So performance and acting wasn't necessarily new to me, but I think around the time period where I became aware that voice acting was a career path or a calling that someone could do, I really became aware of it. Because I'd watched cartoons and played video
Sure.
games growing up, but I never really thought that much about the people who brought those things to life.
Yeah.
Never really occurred to me until it was actually like after college. I was an adult. I was actually out in the world. So yeah, about 2012, 2013 is when I got out of college and I was kind of like living on my own and just yeah, I was like the PS3 era, late PS3 era, right, a little
Mhm.
before the PS4 era.
Yeah.
And I started noticing that a lot of the video games I was spending a lot of time with at the time were getting much more intricate with their stories, with their characterizations, with just the stories they told. They were getting really cinematic and like movie quality plot lines and stuff. So I think what really did it was when I was playing like the early Uncharted games, like Uncharted
Mhm.
1 and 2, and I was noticing
Yeah.
like I became aware of like Nolan North and the other actors that really just made those games what they were. And I think that's when it clicked like, holy shit, this is like, sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to
No,
swear
you're
here.
good. Sorry, I should have told you.
Okay,
That's
it's okay, good.
perfectly fine.
But no, I just had that realization like, wow, this is something that actors do. Like, it's not just, these aren't just like voices that are, summoned out of nowhere. I mean, then
Hmm.
again, with AI, who knows where that'll end up. But like,
That's true.
it's like people are doing this is a performance. People are like really, really act like they're in a movie. And so yeah, that's when I kind of like became aware that that's something someone could do. And I think I spent it was a slow burn. It was a long process of years where I'd kind of just mull it over and think like, how would I go about doing that? What's the process and would I even want to? And I'm also a chronic procrastinator by nature. I put things off a lot.
Yeah,
So
I get
that's just
that.
kind of how I've always been. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, basically years went by before I thought really more seriously about it. I turned 30 in I turned 30 years old in 2020. And so around that time I was like, okay, as I was getting close to I was like 29, getting close to looking at 30, I was like, okay, let's get serious. If that's something I want to do, no time like the present. So I think I started doing a little bit more serious research around that time, and I started talking with people that I knew who did something either they were voice actors themselves or at least they did something adjacent. I started like doing research, like, hey, how do you start? Like, what steps can you take? And
Yeah.
one thing that I heard that stuck with me that I could latch onto and really run with was coaching. Someone recommended like, well, a coach can really get your foot in the door, give you some training, give you some grounding in technique and how the business works and all that stuff. And I was like, that's perfect because that's like less legwork for me to do. It's kind
Yeah.
of like, let's go right to the source. And yeah, I met my first coach, learned quite a lot from him, kept learning after that. I just kept like it really just all came down to putting myself out there. Like
Sure.
you had to just start doing it and
Hmm.
learning from experience. So yeah, I guess video games were the cinemification, I guess, like the really the evolution of video games as a storytelling medium was probably the main point of inspiration for me to pursue voice acting. I know a lot of people their inspiration comes from like anime or cartoons in general, where
Yeah.
they think, oh, dubbing would be really cool. Like, because I love anime. If I had a chance to dub the English versions myself one day, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I respect that goal. It's not like not really a dream of mine. I'm not really that interested in anime, but like I know a
Sure.
lot of people that's where they kind of got inspired. So
Hmm. That's cool, man.
yeah.
So when you're getting ready to play a character, do you have a specific process that you like a I'm not really sure the word I'm looking for. Do you have a certain uh can't think of the word I'm looking for. Do you have a habit or not really a habit? Do you have
Method.
a process of
Yeah.
how you get ready to play a character?
Yeah. Process is a yeah, perfect word for it because I think it is multiple steps where for me it's mostly I just start with just reading, just I start with the script and um just get a sense for the content of not just what my character is doing and saying and feeling, but the world around them. What kind of space does this character inhabit? And yeah, I mean, script interpretation is like one of the hardest skills that I've taken the longest time to learn, and I'm still developing it. Where
Sure.
you that skill means you can look at words and turn that into intention. You can turn that into what does my character want? How are they going to achieve it? And it's all about emotion. Like I think I back when I was first starting out, my process would start with just what does this person sound like, and it would basically start and end with what do I need to sound like. I would just kind of hone in on let's find a voice for this character. But now my process is like kind of evolved to the point where it's really a lot less about the voice and a lot more about their motivations, the intention behind the character, like what do they want out of the situation, how are they feeling about what's happening, and what is driving what's behind the words, basically. So it's really just and I make it sound like that takes a long time, but that can just be a few minutes of really just sitting with the script and just
Sure.
talking it out loud to myself maybe a little bit a few times just to see how it sounds and find the it's really just finding the emotional core of the scene is kind of what I go at. And that's yeah that's really where I start and from there it's seeing giving myself a few test takes, seeing how it feels, seeing how it sounds, and then checking and like how does this feel? Does this feel real? Does it feel conversational? Does it feel natural? If not, if I feel like I'm forcing something or I'm not quite getting what I'm supposed to get, yeah, just keep trying and dial it in, and that's pretty much the process. Like, 'cause I think that if you drag it out too long, if you really belabor it and overthink it, and like try to make it sound perfect, you're gonna wear yourself out. You're gonna
Yeah.
waste time. Like, yeah, it's better to just yeah get a workable understanding of who this person is, and then just go for it and
Then
see
it
how it feels.
kind of just clicks.
Yeah, see if it clicks and see how it feels.
Very cool. So, when getting ready for this interview, I did a little bit of homework, and
Oh, okay.
I've seen that you have voiced characters in video games, other podcasts, audiobooks, and you've even done a couple of short movies. Is there an audio project that you have wanted to do that you haven't got the chance to do yet?
Mhm.
Or projects? We can do more than one if you want.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned video games because, I like I said, that's kind of like where I where I really entered the world of voice acting, where I wanted to end
Yeah.
up. And, there's a funny side tangent, funny story about I guess a pipe dream of mine. There's a behind the scenes footage from the development of the video game Halo 2, which I'm sure
Mhm.
most of us are familiar with Halo 2.
Mhm.
There's footage. I think it was actually some of it was from Halo 3 as well. Footage of the cast, just actors being the various aliens and Marines and whatnot who inhabit the Halo games.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that behind the scenes footage of these people in booths and like how they looked like just normal people off the street, like wearing sweatpants and stuff. Like, but
Yeah.
they were just so utterly absorbed and involved in the scenario. They were letting that person come out of them. And I just remember watching that and just going, that's gonna be me someday. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do something like that where it's like an interactive project of some kind that's just larger than life that like kind of has a you know a legend of its own that really takes on a mystique to it. And that's I think that's what really where I want to end up. Like I've so yeah, to your question, you mentioned a couple of the video games I've done that actually aren't out yet.
Oh wow.
I've yeah, there are two that I definitely two that I know of that I've recorded for, but they're still in development.
Okay.
And then there's one that is out, but it's not really it's a game technically, but it's a visual novel, so you don't actually input anything. You just kind of like click through. It's like a book.
Oh, okay.
And so there's that, and which I've loved doing. I've really enjoyed all those projects so far.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the two outstanding ones to be out and about and actually playable because those are really fun. But yeah, like that's kind of what drives me is like doing more of that. I think that's where my real passion is. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely and adore the audio dramas I've done over the years because
Yeah.
like fiction podcasts, audio dramas, they have such a purity to them that I really enjoy that kind of. I call it the lineage of like kind of like they go back or they sort of carry on the tradition of those classic radio plays, which I really enjoy
Yeah.
the history of that medium.
Hmm.
But but yeah, I guess where my passion would be and what I want to do more of and hopefully advance in are those interactive projects, those like kind of maybe big budget games someday. Maybe I'll be in like, something something big and recognizable one day. That's kind of the goal. But
Nice.
the truth is though, like I do this for fun. I'm not
Yeah.
out to make this like my I don't want to make it a grind where I'm always working to, make it happen because
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to take the passion out of it.
I get it.
So maybe it's a catch 22. Like if I ever want to get big, I have to kind of live it, but I'm not sure I want to live it because then it won't be fun anymore. So
Yeah.
it's a
I
bit of a paradox.
I get it, man. It's kind of like me with this show. Like, I used to be part of, a bigger organization and it was always like grinding out interviews all the time. And
Yeah.
I think at one point I did like 6 interviews in 7 days and it was a lot, but like now it's like, I'm kind of doing my own thing kind of with a couple of my buddies. We started up a network and, now it's like, we just kind of like one of the guys, he'll just do a show whenever he feels like he just does it himself. And a
Yeah.
couple of the other guys, they do like one or two a week. And I'm kind of down to about two or three a week. And it's nice because, I can kind of, plan around it. I don't have to
Mhm.
have my whole life absorb around it. And kind of like what you said, where, if I wanted to get big as a podcaster, that's cool. But I think, like you said, I'd have to like get out and grind, and that's kind of where it would take the fun away from it. Because I've been a podcaster for like 10 years, on and off on different shows, and it's hard because, that's exactly it. You do it a whole bunch and it just takes the fun out of it. But if you, do it, here and there periodically, it's still kind of fun to do. And that's what me and my buddy, we always talk about how we only want to do it if it's going to be fun. And as soon as it stops being fun, then we're not going to do it anymore. And
Right.
I think in that point is when you're doing the grind, you're trying to do that's your whole thing.
Mhm.
And that's when it gets not fun. So, as long as it's fun, that's really all that matters. And like you
True.
said, it's you may need to get on the grind and live that life if you want to get big, but maybe not. Who knows? It's hard to say.
Yeah. It's a matter of balance and, hitting that sustainable stride where
Yeah.
you're making progress, you're putting out quality work that you're proud of that like maybe
Yeah.
can build into something bigger someday, but you're also not burning yourself out
Yeah.
and you're balancing it with, whatever else you have going on, your day job, your family. Like family wise, I have my first kid on the way.
Nice. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. My wife and I are expecting our first pretty soon, and
Nice.
that's gonna be that's gonna blow our lives up. We know that. We're aware that like
Yes, it will.
our sleep schedules are gonna fly out the window, our free time is gonna fly out the window. We understand that. But it's like, hey, that's our next adventure.
Yep.
We're ready to balance that with the things we want to do in life, the things we have to do in life. Um, and it is what it is. So yeah, it's all about sustainability. Like you want to keep doing what you want to do. Like you said, you don't want to, if it stops being fun, you stop. And
Yeah.
so it's avoiding burnout. That's really the key. Is like,
Yeah.
keep going, keep trucking. Make progress, but stay in touch with what feels healthy to you.
Yeah.
Because
Because that burnout I've
Mhm.
experienced that burnout, and that
Mhm.
burnout is super real.
It is. Yeah.
And yeah, when you have kids, speaking as an experienced father myself with two kids, one
Yeah.
is 17 now and one is almost 9.
Wow.
Yeah, it blows your whole world apart, but it's kind of one of the best things you'll ever do.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's one of the very hardest things you'll ever do in your life, but it's really definitely, in my opinion, one of the most rewarding. And that free time isn't gone forever. It's just gone,
Yeah.
it's you just have to find the free time. It presents itself in different ways.
Hmm.
So the free
Yeah.
time's still there, it's just a little bit different. But yeah, it's being a dad's fun. I'm excited for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited, a little nervous, but mostly excited. Yeah, I know it's going to be hard but fulfilling. And yeah, no, it's I keep consoling myself. It's like you'll adapt and learn how to carve out the time for yourself
Yeah.
in other. It
Yep.
won't
It's
be
just
as it won't be like it was. You can never
right.
go back, but
Right.
you'll adapt.
It's not as easy to find it, but it's still able, you can still find it. And I think nobody really ever gave this to me, but the biggest advice that I could give about being a parent is no matter how ready you think you are, you're still never going to be ready. So
Yep.
don't ever get
Yep.
upset because you don't think you're ready enough, because no matter how ready you think you are, you're never going to be ready
Yeah.
all the way. So you
Absolutely.
just kind of do what you can and then just kind of, like you said, adapt to how what comes.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll try to keep that in mind for sure.
Yeah, so never get down on yourself for thinking that, I couldn't prepare for this, because really kids will throw curveballs at you in every sort of imaginable way, and there's no
Hmm.
way that you can prepare for all of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, man. So now we want to get into the now and talk about Oakbridge. On
Okay.
that show, you do an incredible job. You played Deputy Jack Harris, like I mentioned before. And I was really excited to talk to you because there's a lot of times where, when a voice actor comes up with a voice, it's completely different from their actual voice. So I was really
Mhm.
curious to find out if Jack Harris was you or if Jack Harris was a voice. So it's kind of interesting to see that Jack Harris is just you.
He's a different flavor of me. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the thing about I think I touched on this earlier when, with voice acting, I think the character comes first from the emotion and then second from what you do to actually modulate
Sure.
your tool, your main tool.
Hmm.
Um and with Jack, finding him was definitely, a place of it definitely came from a place of he mostly lives like somewhere in my chest voice, but also like it's also a lot of angst and grittiness, and so he's not necessarily my natural speaking voice, but he's
Right.
not far from it.
Yeah.
Which as an actor, that's good when you're able to find a place that is textured and has
Hmm.
character to it, and that is that person, but it's not that much of a strain from what you
Yeah.
normally sound like. Because when I turn on Jack, he's just a little bit more of a older, gruffer, more
Yeah.
over it, pissed off me. He's
Yeah.
just kind of like it's pretty easy to fall into that when I just
Yeah.
kind of put myself in the mindset of your back hurts all the time, you're constantly nursing a hangover or constantly buzzed. There's no in between. There's one or the other.
Hmm.
And just the bitterness. There's just all this bitterness and yeah, just grouchiness. But at the same time, I'm balancing that with a core of goodness that a man who's been through it more
Yeah.
than once, like really through it, but still wants to do the right thing, still wants to help, still believes in justice and hope and all that. And it's he's carrying so much. So there's
Yeah.
when I put all those things in my head and I just kind of activate the little bit of grit and just just feel it. It's a lot easier to feel it that way when I don't have to go too far out of my vocal window, my range, I guess,
Yeah.
to get to that place.
Yeah. It was interesting because I wasn't expecting you to be as young as you are, because hearing Jack Harris, he sounds like a gruff old man. So that's
Hmm.
that's great, man. That's kudos to you. That was incredible.
Thanks. Yeah,
So
Yeah,
Oh,
just a
go ahead.
little age them up a little bit, soak them in whiskey a little bit, smoke, uh, put a few packs of Marlboro Reds down there, and then you
Yeah,
pretty much have them. Yeah.
there you go. Now, I talked, like I mentioned before, I talked to Ashley Dean, the creator of
Yeah.
Oakbridge, yesterday. And I asked her, to talk a little bit about what Oakbridge is. So I kind of want to get that. I want to ask you the same question, but with from your perspective. So for
Mhm.
those who are listening to this who have never heard of Oakbridge before, why don't you kind of talk a little bit about what Oakbridge is?
My pleasure. Yeah. So Oakbridge is it's a sci-fi mystery audio drama. The first season is available now. You can listen to all 10 episodes now. And it's a thrill ride. It really kind of starts from a relatively cozy place. It's all about that small town vibe. And It's got that I mean, an elevator pitch. I guess the short version is you could say it's pretty much Twin Peaks and X Files and Stranger Things kind of crammed together. But I think that as a show, it really utilizes its medium effectively.
Oh
You
yeah.
don't have a lot of visuals to go off of, so I think that it uses the soundscapes effectively and does the most it can with just the audio platform, um, which I find pretty impressive. I remember listening to the finished episodes and thinking like, wow, this came out great. Like I wasn't
Right.
expecting it to sound so detailed.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, I think it's limitations as an audio drama don't really work against it at all. As a show, you still kind of get the every character has a feel to them. None of them really feel lost in the jumble. And yeah, like I said, the small town vibe is all about like neighbors coming together in the face of otherworldly adversity. I guess you could say, as
Yeah.
it's a little bit of that idyllic backwoods community disrupted by a monstrosity that no one saw coming. And so there's that bit of that fear of the unknown coming up against wholesome Midwestern values of, hey, let's all just come together and look out for each other, which,
Yeah.
I'm a lifelong Ohioan myself. I've always lived in, I was born and raised in Ohio, still live in Ohio. And I love it here, unironically. I know Ohio gets made fun of a lot, but I genuinely think it's a nice place to live for the most part. Um, and Yeah, so that was like kind of nice for me as an Ohioan to kind of
Yeah.
embody that because I grew up in a town not that different from Oakbridge. Like it was a little bit more built up. Like
Mhm.
my hometown was technically a village when I was a kid. It
Oh
was it was
wow.
considered a village, and now it's like an incorporated township. It's built up a lot more now since I've been an adult. But no, yeah, I definitely grew up in that rural kind of setting, and it was easy to connect to that. But yeah, I think Oakbridge at its core is all about um, neighbors helping neighbors in the face while treachery and experiments and dark secrets are kind of happening in the background. It's a bit of a past collage of all those things.
Yeah, for sure. And it definitely, having it set in the early 90s, I
Hmm.
think helps with that because, there was no internet. There's really no, cell
Right.
phones and stuff like that. So it's a lot easier to kind of just get out and gab with your neighbors and, get to know your neighbors well.
That's right.
Um,
That's a good point there because there's also a big part of it is also that kind of old timey kids are out on their bikes all day
yeah.
sort of experience. It's not, yeah, no one's sitting at home on the computer, which
Yeah,
is
I've
hard
I've
to relate
tried
to now.
Yeah, I've tried to tell my oldest daughter, like, that's how you knew, because I grew up in the 90s, and
Mhm.
that's how you knew where everybody was, because you just ride your bike around in the house that had all the bikes in the front yard. Like, yep,
Yep.
that's the house where everyone wants to be at, because that's the cool house. And, you
Yep.
just, you didn't really have a curfew. It was just, hey, when the street lights come on, it's time to come home.
Yeah.
Just that kind of old school mentality was cool. And
Yep.
I,
That's the house that has the Capri Suns and Pop Tarts inside, and we're
yeah.
all we're all watching we're all watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in there.
Yes, sir. And yeah, I have to relate with being, in a small town. I wasn't born here, but I've spent most of my life in Idaho. So I'm definitely familiar with, the state that you live in that gets made fun of because everyone confuses Idaho and Ohio.
Mm.
And I always think, oh, Idaho's just a potato place, right? And yeah, it's a lot of people don't like living here, but really it's not that bad, you know?
Yeah,
Like a lot of my friends have moved on to other places just because,
yeah,
they like the big city and all that stuff. And the big city's great and all, but it's not so bad here. So yeah, I
yeah,
definitely can relate to that.
yeah. I live in Cleveland now, which is,
Nice.
I guess I'm in the suburbs of a big city, but
Yeah.
it's yeah, you can go out, you can drive like 20 minutes out of the city and see beautiful state parks and nature, and
Nice.
we got Lake Erie right here as well. So
Very
North,
cool.
I guess I say specifically Northeast Ohio is a great place to live. I'll clarify that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So first, I want to ask, so how did you and Ashley come connected? Because Ashley was telling me, like you had to kind of go back for a minute, when you said listening to the finished episode sounded really cool. I talked to Ashley about that, and it sounds like every single episode was a labor of love when it comes
Mm,
to, fleshing out the outline and the script, and of course the editing and the post production and all the music and stuff. It sounds
absolutely.
like it was a ton of work. So
Yeah.
now moving on, how did you and Ashley get linked up in the first place?
Great question. Yeah, we actually have several mutual friends and colleagues who, like you said, the team that made Oakbridge happen was big and involved and committed. Like everyone who had a role to play, whether there was us on the cast or Ashley as kind of producer and director in some cases, and the visionary behind all of it, but also our executive director, our director James Devereaux Lewis, who directed most of the episodes, and our executive producer Mark Helton, who kind of had hands in everything, and yeah, of course the editing staff, the guys who did the music and the sound effects. Like, yeah, like you said, everyone had a part to play, and everyone just was really committed to seeing it through. And a lot of those same people I've worked with before on other projects. Like, I guess the big one would be Murphy's Inc. is another audio drama that I have a bit of a funny history with. I actually auditioned for the first season of Murphy's Inc., which was produced by Mark and James and a lot of those other same people. I auditioned for that first season, and I got like one of the main roles as the Murphy of Murphy's Inc., who was like one of the main characters. But it
Yeah.
turned out we did like some test recordings, and like we tried to do like some of the first recordings for season one. Uh, Mark came back to me and he said, "You sound too much like the other male lead, and it's just not working. We got to do something else, and I'm really sorry to have to do this, but we got to go a different direction." Like, hey, that's cool, man. It's all good. It's not personal. I understand. And they apparently felt so bad about recasting me that they ended up kind of just keeping me in the wings for like the first opportunity to put me back in something they swooped in on. So
That's
for
cool.
season two, they brought me in as like the announcer for season two of Murphy's Inc. And I come back as sort of a cameo surprise character at the end of season two. Not really spoiling it because that's been out for a little bit. And I will be appearing kind of mainline again in season three. So yeah, I was involved in some of that stuff that those guys were working on. And when that was all wrapping up, I remember them mentioning to me like, "Hey, we're working on a new show with Ashley Dean, who wrote previously. She had written episodes for Murphy's Inc., so she'd been involved as well before." And they were saying like, "Oh, Ashley's developing a new series, and we would like you to try out for again like one of the starring roles." And they gave me some of the specifications like, "Oh, this is like a small town sheriff deputy guy, and he's a Vietnam vet, and he's an alcoholic, and he's really brutish and brooding and gruff and all that." And they had me audition, but I was basically told point blank, "Hey, this is pretty much a formality. We know we want you for this part. We
Okay.
just want to make sure it sounds right.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
just want to like test things out." And to be told that like the the director who will be directing all the episodes, the producer kind of like at the helm of the whole thing, and the creator of the show, all three of these people specifically knew they wanted me for that part. That was probably one of the most flattering things I've ever heard. And it's
Yeah,
probably
that's awesome.
one of the most gratifying experiences. Like, oh, really? Me? Jeez. Like it was almost like this is this is overwhelming. But no, yeah, we did like sort of a test recording slash almost like a screen test, but there's a
Yeah.
screen. And yeah, I read some of the early scenes of the first season of Oakbridge, and I was like, this feels good. This feels right. And yeah, this is great. Let's go for it.
Nice.
And yeah, we recorded all of season one of Oakbridge earlier this year, basically, mostly like this past winter and early spring is when I think all the most of the recordings were done.
That's cool. Now,
Yeah, it was a great experience.
that's awesome. So you kind of talked about this a little bit. Did you have any specific inspirations, or did you draw from any already existing characters when you were coming up with Jack?
I know one that I was told is an inspiration for the character that I studied a little bit was actually David Harbour from Stranger
Ah,
Things.
okay.
His
Okay.
character on Stranger Things was absolutely a point of reference. I tried not to, mimic his, his take on that character.
Sure.
Like, obviously, it's a different. I tried not to mimic him, but it was definitely like, okay, let's get into the vibe of, you know, a man who's in a position of like having to look out for kids that aren't his, basically, and
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and he's in a impossible situation that he wasn't trained for, and yeah, just that was a good way to dial in into the general ballpark of where I wanted to be with Jack.
That kind of
But
makes sense.
yeah, otherwise, he was pretty much pulled out of just personal experiences and just kind of honing in the qualities. But that was a big one. That was yeah, David Harbour. Well, I mean, David Harbour's inspiration. He's an inspiration in a lot of ways, and
That
in particular that one.
sure. Very cool. Now, I have to talk about this part because I talked about this a little bit with Ashley. So,
Mhm.
like I mentioned, after I initially started talking to Ashley about, talking to her and then talking to you, I binged the show and it was fantastic.
Thank you.
And what I talked to her about mostly was, and I'm trying not to spoil anything, so we'll keep it very spoiler
We'll
light or spoiler
keep it
free.
vague. Yeah.
Yes, but the episode where we find out about Jack's backstory, man, that floored me. That was incredible. How did you where did you go to find the emotion for that?
Oh man.
Because that was devastating, man. But you
Thank you.
handled it
Yeah.
really well.
Thanks. Yeah, that was hard. I'm not gonna lie. It was I've said this to anyone who asks. Really, I've said so many times that Jack Harris as a character is probably one of the most rewarding characters I've played, but also some of the most challenging acting work I've ever had to do
Sure.
because that episode in particular and those scenes in particular, this will get a little deep. This, I mean, I'll get vulnerable really quick, but yeah, I went to some very personal, very raw places to access those emotions, and just last year, yeah, around well summer of last year, my wife and I actually went through a medical episode that was pretty traumatic for us both. It involved, long story short, it was an ectopic pregnancy, basically a pregnancy that was non-viable and had to be terminated essentially. Otherwise, she would have been at risk for injury or worse. So it was
Sure.
a very difficult situation. We were devastated because it was, you know, it felt like an opportunity to be parents that was then taken away. And obviously, it all worked out now because we have a healthy one that's nearing completion now, which is great.
Yeah.
But last year it's kind of it was a disastrous first brush with that whole medical you know scenario and
Gosh.
so yeah, late spring early summer of last year that all went down, and it was a long road to recovery for both. I mean, mostly her. Obviously, she had to recover physically. She went through
Sure.
it, okay, and we were both trying to build each other back up. And then I actually lost my day job at the time. Not long after that, literally a year before, literally almost exactly a year ago. Like basically 2 days ago and a year,
Oh wow.
I got laid off from my job at the time. Which again, I've I've landed on my feet. I'm gainfully employed again now, which is so things work out. But last year was rough.
Yeah.
Like, we went through it a bit last year, and so and then fast forward to early 2024 when we start recording for Oakbridge, and I'm starting to come out of those things. Like okay, all the hospital visits were you know uh terrible and draining, and the layoff and the job search has been exhausting and anxiety ridden. And now
Oh,
I'm
sure.
in the booth as Jack Harris, and I'm like, going through these scenarios where I have to embody a man who's falling apart, who's losing, everything that was dear to him. And it's funny because it's hard and easy at the same time, where it's
Sure.
like I know where to go
Yeah.
to get those things that I need to like connect with what's happening right now. So yeah, because on one hand, it's a blessing to be able to draw on such raw, recent, and deeply personal experiences. But yeah, on the other hand, it it's it's emotionally exhausting. It's
You just got
almost
out of there. You're not ready to
yeah,
get back.
yeah, it's almost like re-traumatizing yourself a
Yeah.
little, just kind of regressing yourself back to that place of hopelessness. And it doesn't feel good, but at the
Yeah.
same time, and yeah, this whole thing's a yin and yang kind of thing, it's
Sure.
like that's painful and it
Yeah.
sucks, but at the same time I feel like I'm performing something so honestly and authentically that it feels right. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
this is real shit. I'm digging deep. This is what I need to be doing.
Yeah.
And it also gave me the dubious honor and praise of making my director cry. So there
Oh
was
man.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you ever?
I don't imagine there's people that are listening to that aren't going to at least shed a tear or two.
Yeah. I If you ever talk to James Deverell Lewis, who again I can't praise him enough for his directing efforts on this season. He did an amazing job of kind of guiding me toward the performances I needed.
Sure.
And he was in the room for all those sessions, and I remember him kind of like I hear him sniffling through my headphones, and he's like, "Bro, what are you doing, man? You're killing me over here." And, and so it's like, yeah, again, I'm going through something difficult to get this performance, but at the same time, it's like, hey, I'm nailing it. I'm keying into the emotions that I should be, so that's good. It's
Yeah.
it's again a yin and yang thing. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
And I'm sorry you went through that experience.
Oh, thanks.
I'm glad everything's better now.
Thank you.
And I don't tell this story a lot. I don't think I've ever told this story really, but my wife and I, when we first started trying to have kids, we didn't have a same situation, but we had a similar situation where, we got pregnant, we went and told everybody, and then she lost the baby. And, I understand exactly how you felt, and my
Hmm.
wife did too, because you're excited to be parents,
Yeah.
it's gonna happen, then it just gets taken away from you, and you think that you did something wrong, or like we talked about before, you just didn't prepare enough, and you do everything you try not to beat yourself up, but it's hard not to.
Yeah.
And, everyone told us like, hey, it just happens sometimes. Like there's nothing you can do. It
Not your
just
fault.
exactly. And what we were told was it's a very common thing, to lose your first child. I mean, it doesn't happen to everybody, but, you know, most times it happens at least once. I know like with my family, I know both of my sisters at least lost their first children or their first kid.
Right.
They lost their first pregnancy before they were able to have kids, and now they each have a whole bunch of kids. So, and that's what happened to us is almost a year to the day after we lost the first one.
Yeah.
I mean, and ours wasn't very far along, but it's still it hurts just as bad, you know. I mean,
It's
you
it's
you
yeah,
understand.
it's a hope that gets taken away. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a thing you're optimistic about, and then
Hmm.
it suddenly
Because
stops.
then you have to go back and tell everyone like, hey,
Yeah.
never mind, we're not. But
Yeah.
almost a year to the day is
Mhm.
when our oldest was born. So it's kind of like, it just wasn't the time yet. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's what they told us, and it kind of made us feel better. The fact that it's super common, it happens all the time. It just never gets talked about. Just because for some
Yeah.
reason they just don't want to talk about it. So
It's so hard to say it out loud to people. It's
yeah,
so hard to but yeah, you're right, like, it blew my mind how many people I knew had been through something similar, and
yeah,
I am also so very sorry you had to go through that as well, but,
thank you.
and I'm really glad it's, you know, the situation's improved for you and you have your beautiful family now, but yeah, I remember when we were yeah, last year when we were kinda, like, explaining what happened to friends, family, coworkers, whoever wanted to know. Yeah, how many people said, "Oh, yeah, we had an ectopic too," or "We had, you know, we miscarriages happen," and it's yeah, you're right, it's shockingly common, but people just it's so hard to talk about, you just
Yeah,
never
I
know.
mean, no matter how common it is, it's still when it
Yeah,
happens, it still sucks.
right, right.
But you know,
But no,
all
that's
right,
those are the things that fuel the arts, you know, like
true.
whether it's acting or any other creative expression, you know, these are the things we go through that we turn them into something productive and beautiful.
Yeah, that real life experience is what helps, create the
Yeah.
good stuff. That's, like we had kind of mentioned earlier, that's something that AI is not ever going to be able to replicate.
Yeah,
Can't replicate the human
absolutely,
experience.
absolutely.
All right, man. So before I let you go, a couple more things. The first thing is, what do you have coming up that you're able to talk about that you can
Ooh,
share with us?
question. I have let's see. I have a couple things that are in the works. Let me think. I recently filmed another independent short film with a friend of mine, a collaborator that I love working with. He's here in Cleveland as well. We shot a short film together last summer, and we did some pickups throughout the last year or so. And it's in production. It should hopefully be. I don't know. I can never get a read on when it's actually going to be done, but when it is, I can't wait to show it off because
Nice.
it's a live action short film,
Oh,
but
cool.
the character I portray, or at least the main one that I play a CGI floating robot orb type guy,
Okay.
kind of like a Guilty Spark or something along those lines, you
Okay.
know, from Halo again.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting because yeah, it's a live action film, but like I'll be portraying a CG character alongside like my real life castmates who I was on set with and like reading lines with. But it's just like the guy I'm portraying will be inserted later, so I can't wait to see that come together. That's really exciting. That's in the pipeline.
Very
Not sure
cool.
when. And like I said, there's a couple video games that I'm in that also in the pipeline. Can't wait to share. Also, you know, obviously Oakbridge is out. Um, so you can hear that right now. I was recently I had a small part in a horror anthology series called Invasive Affairs
Oh, nice.
by produced by Cold Open Stories that was really cool. Really glad to be a part of that production because it was very impressive. That's on my website. You can find that. My website, www.connorhowardvo.com. It's Connor with an ER. That's important. And yeah, those are the big ones. I do have one really cool thing that came up recently that I can't say too much about.
That's okay.
Um, I'll have to be vague. Basically, a musician I'm a fan of. I recently got in touch with, and I was offered an opportunity to basically provide a kind of a talk out, almost like a vocal cameo in one of their songs.
Oh, nice.
So that's completely random. I didn't expect to be able to, you know, say I've done that.
Yeah.
Um, that'll probably be that'll probably won't be out and available till next year at some point when, you know, albums take a while to mix and master and all
Yeah.
that. Um, but yeah, no, that's really exciting. But otherwise,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, the things I work on, it's really it's kind of a just when I feel like it, when I'm able to make things happen. You know, the
Nice.
pace isn't super crazy and hectic, but got a few cool things working. And then of course, Oakbridge season two, I'm sure will be happening at some point fairly soon, hopefully in the next year or so. And yeah, that's probably about it.
Yeah, I know Ashley, we talked about, season two is kind of in progress and
Mhm.
auditions are coming soon, so that's pretty
Yes.
exciting. That's
Yes,
very
auditions for
exciting.
season two. Yeah, if you want to join me on the digital stage, that's your chance.
Yep,
It's
and
it's a great family to be a part of. I highly recommend it.
She mentioned no previous experience necessary. So I said,
Mm.
I don't know if I necessarily fit the age range of the characters, but I told her there's one or two that I might take a crack at. So I'm pretty
Yeah,
excited to give it a shot.
hell yeah, go for it.
Heck yeah, man. Okay. So one last thing before I let you go. I usually like to ask my guests to share a bit of advice with fellow creatives. So what's some advice that you'd like to share?
Mm, good question. I would say just yeah, we kind of touched on this already, but I think it's important is yeah, do what you love and stay in touch with yourself. Uh, and in the sense of, am I doing what I love? And balance it with your life. Make it happen, but don't burn yourself out. And just be nice to yourself. Be patient with yourself. Because life's a constant learning process. You're gonna fall down. You're gonna learn as you go. You're gonna make mistakes here and there, but ideally, you're always going to be improving and striving and making progress. And yeah, just be nice to yourself. Be excellent to each other. Be good neighbors. Be kind. And yeah, keep doing what you love because the world needs art. You know, art makes life worth living. So keep creating and keep doing what you love.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Now, other than your website, is there, which I want you to plug again, is there any other
Sure.
place we can keep up to date with you on stuff that's coming?
The big ones, yeah, are the website is where my demos and my work can be found. You can see all pretty much all the projects I've done up to date, fairly up to date, are on my website www.connorhowardvo.com. And just my Twitter I use occasionally. I'm not super active on it, but you can DM me there and I'll see it. And you can follow me. I'm actually getting ready to I'm hopefully launching a new podcast soon of my own. I've been a
Nice.
podcaster myself for a while, and
Right on.
funny enough, I want to start doing a show on Warhammer 40K.
Nice.
So that might be something that you can see from me on my Twitter coming up, and yeah, obviously when I have new work, I usually plug it there as well. But yeah, that's just my handle there is just at Connor Howard VO as well. Same as the website. And yeah, those are the big ones. Just my website, no Twitter. I don't have a TikTok or an Instagram or anything like that. I'm kind of old school. I'm an old man. I
Yeah.
don't really have patience for other stuff like that. But
Old
hey,
man.
yeah, go ahead and follow me. Don't be a stranger. I'm around.
You're an old man, man. You're
I
way
know.
younger than me.
Could have fooled me. I wouldn't have thought so.
You know, that's what everybody says. And without my beard, I look even younger, but I actually will be turning 40 on Friday. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. Well, you wear it well, my
thank
friend.
you. I
I
feel
I'm
every inch
I
of
can
it.
see a baby face hiding under that beard for sure.
Oh yeah, and if I ever get rid of the beard, I think my wife will get rid of me. So
I
I have to
same.
keep
I'm never
it.
shaving this off. I used to before I could grow a mustache, I just had a little bit of a chin bar. So
Yeah.
just if you can picture bare upper lip and just a little chin fuzz,
Oh
that's what I
man.
used to have in my 20s, and then I finally grew a mustache.
I used to just have these big meaty sideburns and nothing else. And it made me mad because my dad used to have this enormous, beautiful mustache. I'm like,
Mm,
I want to have that so bad. But then eventually everything else, I used to kind of have the chin strap one, but then everything
mm.
else kind of started filling in finally. And I'm at the
I
point now where my job doesn't care how long my facial hair is. So I'm just like,
That's
all
good.
right, we're just gonna see how long it can go. So, whatever.
Full send. Let's just yeah, get it out there. I had to
Definitely.
shave it all off and then let it all grow back at once to finally get connected here.
Yep.
So that was tricky.
I've
Anyway.
been there before too. All right, so for me, I first want to thank Polygon Horizon for their song Pizza Force. It's the theme for this show. Go check them out on Bandcamp. It's a fantastic song. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook just at Fueled by Weird. You can check me out at fueledbyweird@gmail.com. Drop me a line. We can connect and chat about all sorts of weird stuff. You can find this show on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, all that stuff. And now you can find me on the Spotlight Media GA app, along with the rest of the Stay Weird Network shows, the Nerdy Manroom show with Hassel and Monster, Hassel's Review, and Big Rob's House of Entertainment and No Chinese Food. Now, speaking of Stay Weird Network, it's a brand new podcast network dedicated to bringing some awesome back to the internet. You can find me at Stay, or you can find us at Stay Weird Media on YouTube and on Instagram. And you can email us at stayweirdmedia@gmail.com. I'd also like to thank my sponsor, the Zone Collectibles in Tifton, Georgia, your one-stop shop for comics, collectibles, and so much more. And if you like the show, please leave a review and tell your friends because word of mouth is my friend. And remember, kids, life's too short to be normal, so stay weird. Connor, thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great. Had a great
Thank
time.
you.